has increased drastically. There are about 67,000 Indonesians in Japan as of the end 2020, assuming that 90% of them are Muslims. There are approximately 60,000 Indonesian Muslims living in Japan now. The total Muslim population living in Japan is now about 200,000. Indonesian Muslims are the largest group by country of origin among these 200,000 Muslims in Japan. Okay, now, beforehand, please, yes. Okay. This one stay. Please take a look at the transition of Indonesian Muslims living in Japan. Up to 1980s, there were mostly diplomats, government-sponsored students, employees of major corporations and their elites. In other words, they were promised to return to Indonesia after staying in Japan for a certain period of time and became leader of the country. PPI, or Persatuan Pelajar Indonesia, was founded in 1953 as an organization for Indonesian students studying in Japan. PPI is not a Muslim organization, but includes Christian and followers of other religions. In the 1990s, technical intern training programs started in order to encourage Indonesians to learn Japanese technology and various professional skills there. This brought the influx of working-class Indonesians from rural areas. But the number was still limited, and they were only allowed to stay in different areas of Japan for only 1 or 2 years. In 2000s and 2010s, the number of Indonesian Muslims included, and they were from the different social classes to come to Japan for various purposes, including study and work. They were not only students and technical intern trainees, but also some nurses and care workers stipulated by economic partnership agreement between Indonesia and Japanese government, and also highly skilled professionals and so forth. The regulation got changed and technical intern trainees were allowed to stay in Japan for longer, up to 5 years. Next, please. Indonesians in Japan by status of residence. This is the table showing the legal status of Indonesians living in Japan in 2020. It shows that the technical interns account for more than 50% of the total. The second largest group is permanent resident. They are people who have lived and worked in Japan for more than 10 years and have passed the screening process offered by the Japanese government. The third largest is student. These numbers have all increased about 3 times over the past 10 years. Please, next. This table shows the number of Indonesians living in each prefecture in 2020. Students and people working for large companies live in big cities such as Tokyo and Osaka, while many of the technical intern trainees are engaged in manufacturing plants, fishery, and agriculture in the suburbs of large cities such as Aichi, Ibaraki, Kanagawa, and Saitama. Next, please. If you look at the previous studies on Muslims in Japan, you will find most of them focused on foreign Muslim workers from Pakistan, Iran, and Bangladesh, which started to settle in Japan since the late 1980s. They have been more visible in Japanese society compared to Indonesian Muslims because many of those people married Japanese women, lived permanently, and built many mosques in Japan. The previous studies also focused on the mosques those Muslims built and the communities they belonged to. For instance, about Masjid Otsuka, Masjid Nagoya, Tablighi Jama'ah, Ahmadiyya, the network of Japanese converted wives who got married with foreign Muslims, mostly from Pakistan and Bangladesh. Some of recent studies on Japanese converted Muslims and second generation of foreign Muslims. In these studies, you can find a few partial discussions of Indonesian Muslims in Japan, but there is no focus on Indonesian Muslim community itself, as far as I can tell. Please. On the other hand, studies of Muslim diaspora in other countries, especially in Europe, have pointed that they have a tendency to create an ethnic enclave. In other words, they do not integrate into the host society, but create their own enclave or detached land, and live in the congregation or their own community. It seems this argument can also apply to Indonesian Muslims in various countries, according to some previous studies. For example, the case of Netherlands. Idulcha and Gusnelli in 2019 pointed out that the Muslim diasporas lives here or in the immigrant society, but at the same time, they relate to there, meaning that they connect to their home country. About the case of London in UK, Wardana in 2014 found that despite the ideal unity as Ummah, different orientation is seen among Indonesian Muslims, how they interact with fellow Muslims of different ethnicity, depending on their attitude toward Islam, such as traditionalist, the revivalist, and secularist. Next, please. The other case is about Indonesian Muslims in South Korea. Coincidentally and luckily, I found a study done by Prof. Eka Srimulyani, the MC of this session today. She pointed out that preserving their attachment to culture, food, attire, and such, the in-group solidarity might create space from having a better integration with the society. The integration to the host society is still an issue and a challenge for most Indonesian Muslims. Next, please. Here is the overview of the history of the establishment of mosques in Japan. It includes not only the mosques built by Indonesians, but in Japan as a whole. There were only 4 mosques in Japan up to 1990. One of the oldest mosques in Japan is Tokyo Jami. Please push the button. Yes. In Yoyogi Uehara in Tokyo. It was founded in 1938, and it is also one of the biggest and the most famous mosques there. But in 1990s, the foreign Muslims started to establish mosques in different areas in Japan, and the number increased to 14 in 1999. For instance, Masjid Nagoya is among the mosques established during this period. Please. Yes. There was a rush to open in the year 2000s, and the number increased to 67 in 2010. As of 2018, there were more than 100 mosques nationwide. They include some built by Indonesian Muslims. Now, I will introduce you to the 4 mosques of them established by the Indonesians. All of these are opened within the last 5 years or so. One of them is Masjid Nusantara Akihabara, which opened in 2019. Okay. Here, I will talk about Indonesian Muslim communities and the mosques they built in Japan. Please, next. The first case is KMEE and the Tokyo Indonesian Mosque. KMEE, or Keluarga Masyarakat Islam Indonesia Japan, was established around 1970. At that time, Scholar Republic Indonesia Tokyo opened, and it led to the organization of KMEE. For about 30 years since its establishment, KMEE had only operated the prayers of Friday and Eid at the Indonesian school. Around 2000, there were calls for the construction of a mosque because not enough space was available in the school building. In 2012, Mosque Construction Committee launched, and the construction began in 2016. Finally, it opened at Idul Fitri in 2017. The mosque operations are handled by KMEE's Mosque Operations Department. The mosque is used for Friday and Eid prayers, Iftar and Tarawih prayers in the month of Ramadan, conversion ceremonies, weddings, funerals, and study sessions for children. Besides the Department of Mosque Operation, KMEE also has the departments of Dawah, Zakat, and social activities. Next, please. Yes. It can be said that KMEE members are mostly elites, including university students, professionals, and embassy staff. Their advisors include Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Japan, the heads of Japan branch of major Indonesian companies, including Garuda and Bank Indonesia there. Now, there are 25 KMEE branches across the country, and it focuses on Dawah activity. Now there are about 25 KMEE branches across the country, and it serves as a hub orientation for Indonesian Muslims in Japan. In addition, especially during the pandemic, it focuses on Dawah activities online for the Japanese non-Muslims and newly converted Japanese. Islam Zemi, or the Islamic Seminar, this is a monthly project that has been ongoing for several years. It's an activity that teaches Islam in a simple way in Japanese. Main speakers there are the Japanese Muslim activists who have the connection with KMEE. I would say that this seminar is very valuable because there are very few opportunities to learn about Islam in Japanese in Japan. You can see some pictures here. The left hand is the Indonesian school. And next to the school building, there is Masjid Tokyo, Indonesia. These two in the middle are the pictures of the masjid. I took these 2 pictures when I visited there with my students. At that time, my female students were given hijabs by the members of KMEE, and my students were very happy, of course, to take selfies with their hijabs. The last picture in the right side is the flyer of Islam seminar in Japanese language. Please, next. Next, please. Yes. The other case is about NU network and the mosques they built. As you know, NU is the largest mass organization in Indonesia and has a very large social and political influence. However, its organization in Japan is relatively new. Around 2004, PCINU, or NU Japan branch, was formed, mainly by students who had NU background at that time, but it first obtained the Japanese legal status as a social organization in 2019. Please, next. The construction of mosques by this NU people has been very active for the past 5 years. I will show you a few of them here. The first one is Kabukicho Al-Ifras Mosque, the oldest of these. It is located in the center of crowded Shinjuku downtown Tokyo. It is very tiny 3-story building, and it is used to be a small cafe. In 2015, Mr. A, an Indonesian entrepreneur who had lived in Japan for a long time, came up with the idea to establish a mosque, collected donation, mobilized his friends and interns, and began the construction. In 2017, it was reopened as a mosque in time for Eid al-Adha. For the NU members, the opening of Tokyo Indonesian Mosque provided a major stimulus. In other words, the opening of Masjid Indonesia Tokyo sparked competitive spirit of NU people. Besides daily prayers, weekly Yashinan and Tahlilan meetings and Hadra performances are held in Kabukicho Mosque every Thursday night. They say the location is perfect because the surroundings are also very noisy with many restaurants and cafes. So no matter how loud the noisy they make at the mosque, it doesn't matter. Its users are mostly Indonesians, but the capacity is only about 30 people because the space is very limited. So it is always packed by NU members there for prayers, performing hadra, the cooking and eating Indonesian foods there. Previously? Yes. The picture in the middle is the entrance of the mosque. As you see, it is an unusual place for a mosque. And the picture in the right hand is the bulletin board set inside near the entrance of the mosque. As you may see, Arabic, English, Japanese, and Indonesian statements are there. Next, please. Gradually, the Kabukicho Mosque alone could no longer meet the increasing demand from Indonesian NU-affiliated Muslims, and it became necessary to have another mosque. Mr. A, who renovated and opened Kabukicho Mosque, had an office in a building in Akihabara area. Luckily, there was a vacant space in the 4th and 5th floor of the building, and the owner gave him permission to turn it into a mosque. When its opening in May 2019, at the timing of Eid al-Fitr, about 500 Indonesian Muslims visited to the mosque. Nusantara is used as the name of the masjid, which is unusual in Japan because Muslims there are multi-ethnic generally. So it sounds very Indonesian. The mosque is mainly used by Indonesians, but also some Muslims of other ethnicities also regularly visit. So the picture in the left hand is the building. Inside the 4th and 5th floors of the building, is used for the mosque. And these are the mosque, inside of the mosque. As you can see in the picture in the right hand, NU flag, and also the portrait of Hasim Ashori, a founder of NU. Please, yes, that's the portrait of Hasim Ashori, a founder of NU. Please, next. Okay, the last one is NU Atakwa Mosque, which was opened in Koga City in Ibaraki Prefecture last year. It is about 50 or 60 kilometers from the center of Tokyo, and it takes about 1.5 hours or 2 hours to get there from Tokyo by car. It is the area where many Indonesian technical intern trainees live. In the past, the prayer meetings had been held in the houses of Indonesians living in this area, but it was not enough space. The building was used as a vegetable processing factory before and was renovated to be used as a mosque. It opened in July 2021. The opening ceremony was held with the Hadra performance and the singing of Indonesia Raya, and was attended by the ambassador of Republic of Indonesia in Japan, giving it a strong NU and Indonesian color. As long as I know, this is the first mosque in Japan to bear NU as its name. I took this video during the opening ceremony. Please push the one. Can you? This is the other performance during the opening session. Yeah, it's very good. This is the video that I took during the opening ceremony of Masjid Koga in Ibaraki, NU Atakwa. So yeah, you can find it. The atmosphere is very much NU. Okay, next. From here, I would like to introduce a new trend that is different from the activities of the Indonesian community. Among the leaders of these new trends, there are young Indonesian Muslims. Please. The first activity is the Islam Zemi, or Islamic Seminar. It is led by KMEE, which I told you earlier. This is the monthly Islamic study group in Japanese. It is now online due to the pandemic, but it has become more active and attended than before. The other activity is called the Breakfast Meeting, organized by some young Muslimah. It also online study sessions in Japanese and posting in Instagram in Japanese. It targets young women who have just converted and non-Muslim young women who are interested in learning Islam. Several Indonesian Muslimah are among the organizer members of this group. Its study sessions are set up in very early mornings, right after the Subuh prayer and before they are going to work or school. The information and posters that circulate on Facebook and social networks are all in Japanese, so at the first glance, it's hard to tell they are run by Indonesians. Of course, Japanese Muslims are also involved in this project, collaborating with Indonesian Muslims. Please, next. This is another network called Young Muslim Club, organized by the second generation young Muslims having different ethnicities, including Indonesians. Japanese converts of the same age are also participating. One of the leaders is Indonesian. Based in Tokyo Jami, they hold a monthly gathering. Non-Muslims are also free to participate. They are also active on Instagram. Please. Please, next. Oh, yes. In addition to Islamic study sessions, they also organize charity events such as tree planting in the town and hold summer festivals at Tokyo Jami. Yeah, this is the Islamic session in Tokyo Jami, and the other picture is about the summer festival during the summertime. Okay, next, please. This is the activity of one Indonesian Muslimah. She was born and raised in Japan, and she identifies herself as a Muslimah and actively shares her fashion and lifestyles as an Instagrammer and photographer. Her aim is to remove misconceptions and prejudice against Islam in Japan and to let Japanese people know that Islam is a blessing for all of us. Her Instagram followers include many non-Muslim Japanese women. Interest and sympathy for her is growing among young Japanese. Yeah, her name is Alpha. Yeah, this is her Instagram and also the website that she created. Yeah. Please, next. Okay, here's the summary about the characteristic of the Indonesian Muslim community. In the past, many were from the elite class who stayed in Japan for a certain period of time and then returned to Indonesia. The rapid increase in the acceptance of foreign human resources, including technical intern trainees, had led to the diversification and settlement of Indonesian Muslims in Japan in recent years. The core members of KMEE are university and graduate students and alumni. More and more people find jobs and settle down in Japan. KMEE and Tokyo Indonesian Mosque play a hub role in the network of Indonesian Muslims in Japan. Please, next. Next one, please. Yes. On the other hand, university and graduate students and permanent residents having NU background increase the activities by incorporating technical intern trainees and mosque construction in various locations. Strongly influenced by the political and social situation in Indonesia's home country, the community also becomes a place for political activities occasionally. The construction of a mosque for them is the creation of a network and place for their religious practices, as well as an opportunity to experience the language, taste, information, and culture of their homeland. Please, next. With the increasing influx of Indonesians into Japan, the Indonesian Muslim community has become more diverse and stratified. Each group has strong bond among its members. While living under the Japanese circumstance with different language and lifestyles, they share their own language, food culture, and attitudes towards Islam and feel connected. It would be their successful strategy to live as a minority in non-Muslim majority society, but at the same time, it would be not easier for Japanese people or even Muslims from other countries of origin to cross language and racial barriers and to join the community of these Indonesian mosques where Indonesian language is spoken and the atmosphere is so Indonesian on a daily basis. On the other hand, without integrating in these communities, there are young Muslims, including Indonesians, who do dawah for Japanese non-Muslims and newly converts, collaborate with other ethnic Muslims, and present themselves as Muslims. What they are doing is the attempt to cross the language and ethnic barriers and connect with other ethnic Muslims and even with non-Muslim Japanese. That's all my presentation. Thanks for listening, and terima kasih banyak atas perhatiannya.
Thank you very much, Professor Yu. We not only enjoy your presentation, but also a late taste of NU music in Japan. Thank you very much. So we'll now have a second speaker, but before I invite him to give a presentation, I will introduce him very briefly to all of you. His name is Professor Mujibur Rahman. He is a professor of sociology of religion and also rector of UIN Antasari State Islamic University. He graduated from UIN Antasari in 1994 and continued his master's degree in religious studies at McGill University in 2000, and then his PhD at Utrecht University, the Netherlands. His dissertation, entitled Feeling Threatened, Muslim and Christian Relation in Indonesian New Order, was published by University of Amsterdam Press in 2006. And his current publication is on Islamization and Indonesiaization. It's really difficult to pronounce. Published in an edited book volume by Nabil Chang Kwanlin, a Taiwanese Muslim scholar, I think. And today, Professor Mujibur Rahman will give a presentation on the fundamental issues in Indonesian context related to religious freedom. So religious freedom and the state policy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Professor Mujibur Rahman. Prof. Mujib, the stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera. Honorable speakers, Professor Yo Nanaka, also my good friend, Professor Master Hilmi, the steering committee, students, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my deep thanks to the steering committee for inviting me to speak in front of you today. This is a great honor for me to be here and to discuss important issues related to religion in our country. My presentation today will be entitled "The Middle Path is Not Easy." Jalan tengah yang tidak mudah. The state and religious freedom in Indonesia. So this is a quite sensitive issue. I will try to make it clear and not going into detail, just talking about fundamental issues about religious freedom in Indonesia. Let me begin with a book published in 2016 by Jeremy Menchik. He's going to talk, I think, today after these sessions. His book is entitled Islam and Democracy in Indonesia, Tolerance Without Liberalism. I think this book is very interesting because in this book he discussed the idea of democracy in the context of specific socio-cultural background. He said that the dominant theory about democracy in the West, and even in the world, is that you cannot have democracy unless you have a secular state and you have the ideology of liberalism. So these two are a kind of necessary requirements for a democracy. But according to Menchik, today we have to think about democracy that can grow in various ways according to the socio-cultural conditions of each country. So Indonesia is a model of another kind of democracy. Indonesia is not a secular state. It is not an Islamic state. It is a neither nor state. Negara bukan-bukan. And if you can say positively, Indonesia is a multi-religious state, I think. And according to Jeremy, based on his in-depth interview with figures from Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah and other Muslim intellectuals, and completed with surveys through questionnaires, he concluded that Indonesian society adheres to communal tolerance in the sense of maintaining and respecting the existence and interests of groups, so that individual freedom can be limited if it interferes with the integrity of the group. So this is what he calls tolerance without liberalism. And this is what I said in the beginning of my presentation as the middle path. So the middle path is not easy, but it is possible, as we are witnessing in the policies of the state concerning religious freedom. In our constitution, I mean the 1945 constitution, Article 29, the first section, it is stated, the state is based on one Godhead. Negara berdasarkan ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. So ketuhanan is different from Tuhan. So it should be translated Godhead, something like that. It's God and Godhead. So the idea of Godhead, I think coming from Sukarno, is to make it more inclusive. It's not something exclusive. And then the second section of the Article 29, it is stated, the state guarantees the freedom of each citizen to embrace their respective religions and worship according to their religions and belief. So this section of the Article 29, I think, is something to do with religious freedom in our constitution. And then after the reformations, we have also amendment of the constitutions in relation to human rights. So you can look at the Article 28 to Article 28A to 28J. In the Article 28I, number 1, it is stated, among other things, that the right of freedom of thought and conscience and the right to religion are human rights that cannot be reduced under any circumstances. However, in the section 3 of the same article, it is also stated that cultural identity and rights of traditional communities are respected in line with the development of times and civilization. Dalam bahasa Indonesianya, identitas budaya dan hak masyarakat tradisional dihormati selaras dengan perkembangan zaman dan peradaban. So if section 1 talk about individual rights, then this one guarantees group rights. And then Article 28J more explicitly states the limitation of individual rights. In section 1, it is stated that everyone is obliged to respect the human rights of others in the orderly of life of society, nation, and state. Setiap orang wajib menghormati hak asasi manusia orang lain dalam tertib kehidupan bermasyarakat berbangsa, dan bernegara. And then section 2 further explain, in exercising his or her rights and freedom, everyone is obliged to comply with the restriction established by law for the sole purpose of guaranteeing recognition and respect for the rights of freedoms of others, and to meet fair demands in accordance with moral consideration, religious values, security, and public order in a democratic society. It's rather a complicated sentence. In Indonesian language, dalam menjalankan hak dan kebebasannya, setiap orang wajib tunduk kepada pembatasan yang ditetapkan dengan undang-undang dengan maksud semata-mata untuk menjamin pengakuan serta penghormatan atas hak dan kebebasan orang lain, dan untuk memenuhi tuntutan yang adil sesuai dengan pertimbangan moral, nilai-nilai agama, keamanan dan ketertiban umum dalam suatu masyarakat yang demokratis. So these two kind of, emphasis of individual freedom and protection of community, or the integrity of community. So we are trying to find a middle way between the two sides. And it is not easy because sometimes, the pendulum swing to the left, and then sometimes swing to the right. And it happened when we are talking about the realities of religious freedom in laws and regulation, and also their implementations in society. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with one sensitive question. In this Pancasila state, based on the belief in one God or one Godhead, is it allowed somebody as a citizen to have no religion? This question arises, I think, long time ago, in the beginning of this Ministry of Religious Affairs, written by Haji Agus Salim. I found this book when I was in Holland. It is very interesting, a small book published by the Ministry of Religious Affairs. There's an article there by Haji Agus Salim. And Agus Salim said that somebody who has no religion is allowed in Indonesia. He said the guarantee of religious freedom includes the freedom to have no religion. So this is a statement of founding fathers, I think, of the Indonesian state. That's quite liberal, anyway. But if you want to have an ID card now, you have KTP, I think you have to put your religious affiliations. So you cannot say, I have no religion in Indonesia. Probably it is for administrations or something else. And then there is another question about recognized and unrecognized religions. Agama yang diakui dan yang tidak diakui. The only reference for me to talk about this is the Presidential Decree number 1, 1965. So this is kind of the last times of Sukarno regime. It was issued in 1965. So here we find that in the decree, a statement that there are 6 religions existing in Indonesia. It's not recognized, but it's existing in Indonesia. Islam, Christianity include Protestant, Catholics, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Confucianism. But at the same time, in this decree, it is stated it doesn't prohibit other religions, including ethnic religions, from growing in Indonesia. Let me quote the Indonesian original decree here. Agama-agama yang dipeluk oleh penduduk Indonesia adalah Islam, Kristen, Katolik, Hindu, Buddha, dan Konghucu. Hal ini dapat dibuktikan dalam sejarah perkembangan agama-agama di Indonesia. Karena 6 macam agama ini adalah agama-agama yang dipeluk hampir seluruh penduduk Indonesia. Maka kecuali mereka mendapat jaminan seperti yang diberikan pada pasal 29 ayat 2 Undang-Undang Dasar, juga mereka mendapatkan bantuan dan perlindungan seperti yang diberikan pasal ini. Kemudian ini tidak berarti bahwa agama-agama lain, misalnya Yahudi, Zoroastrian, Shinto, Taoism dilarang di Indonesia. Mereka mendapat jaminan penuh seperti yang diberikan oleh pasal 29 ayat 2 dan mereka dibiarkan adanya asal tidak melanggar ketentuan-ketentuan yang terdapat dalam peraturan ini atau peraturan-peraturan perundangan lainnya. Kemudian di sini disambahkan lagi, terhadap badan atau aliran kebatinan, pemerintah berusaha menyalurkan ke arah pandangan yang sehat dan ke arah ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. So this about aliran kepercayaan or spiritual groups outside the recognized religion. There's something new, I think, in the Reformasi era. In November 2017, the Constitutional Court finally decided that the adherents of aliran kepercayaan or spiritual groups outside the world religions could write in the religious columns of their identity card and family card that they are adherent of a certain aliran kepercayaan. Based on these decisions, in Kalimantan, for instance, the followers of Kaharingan, now they can put their identity as the followers of Kaharingan in their identity card. Ladies and gentlemen, let me move on to other issues of religious freedom in Indonesia. The religious freedom in Indonesia includes the freedom to propagate religion, to receive foreign aid for religious institutions, to establish places of worship, interfaith marriage, religion classes, and the issue of religious blasphemy. So in terms of propagating religion, this is a long story in the beginning of the New Order. There is a regulation from the Ministry of Religious Affairs that in Indonesia, you are not allowed to propagate a religion to the people who already have religions. It means the people of the followers of the recognized religion. Tidak boleh menyiarkan agama kepada orang yang sudah beragama. Something like that. And it is, I think, okay, probably during the New Order period, but it is quite difficult to implement today, especially in social media. How can you prohibit people to preach or to propagate religion and to the people who are not your fellows of your religions? You cannot control that, I think. So it should be changed, probably. And then the second one is receiving the foreign aids for religious institutions, menerima bantuan untuk lembaga-lembaga keagamaan. So the regulation stated that if an institution receive foreign aid, it should report to the government. It is an obligation for the institution to report to the government how much you receive money from foreign aid, bantuan luar negeri. I think it is also quite difficult today because the transaction almost always electronically done. But probably you can use, the government can control it via the Financial Transaction Report and Analysis Center, PPATK, as it has been done to track the flow of terrorist funds. I think the regulation should be moving toward that direction. And then one of the controversial issue in Indonesia is interreligious marriage. If you look at the marriage law of 1974, you cannot find any regulation there concerning interreligious marriage. So what you can find there is that a marriage is valid, legally valid, if it is carried out according to religions and belief. Perkawinan itu sah apabila dilaksanakan berdasarkan agama dan kepercayaan seseorang. In this context, the Indonesian Council, the Indonesian Ulama Council, or the Indonesian Council of Ulama, Majelis Ulama Indonesia, issued a fatwa in 1980 prohibiting female and male Muslims to have interreligious marriage. Haram hukumnya according to MUI. And this fatwa was strengthened again, reaffirmed in 2005. So today I think it is quite difficult to have intermarriage. But you have, of course, an escape, a kind of an escape. For instance, in the marriage law, it is stated that a marriage carried out outside Indonesia and it is acknowledged as a legal marriage in that country, then it is also to be acknowledged and valid in Indonesia. So you can have an intermarriage if you go abroad. Ya, kalau banyak duitnya bisa nikah antar agama ke Singapura misalnya. And then another issue is religion class, pendidikan agama. According to national education system law, religion classes are compulsory. Actually, if you look at the history, in 1950s, religion classes are not compulsory. It is optional. And then by the late of 1960s, it was starting to be obligatory or compulsory, starting from the university, because at that time the Minister of Higher Education, Muhammad Sharif, was a military man, and he wanted to oppose the Communist Party by imposing religious education through university education. And then after the fall of Sukarno, and then the religion classes became compulsory in Indonesia. And then, in the national education system law, it was also stated that the teachers of religion classes should be of the same religion with the students. And then we move on to another issue. This is, I think, also very sensitive issue. It is the freedom to establish places of worship. I'm not sure if this is also a problem in Japan, because you talk about how Indonesian established a mosque in Japan. But in Indonesia, it is a long history about this complicated issue. In 2006, the Ministers of Religious Affairs and Home Affairs issued a joint decree about this. So in this decree, among other things, it is stated that if you want to establish a new place of worship, first you have to have a recommendation from the Forum of Interreligious Harmony at the level of district. Jadi harus dapat rekomendasi FKUB, Forum Kerukunan Umat Beragama, di level kabupaten. And then second, the users of the new place of worship should be at least 90 people. And it should be supported by the people in the construction area, at least by 60 people. And then, if the support of the surrounding community, surrounding the construction area, is not obtained, but the users reach 90 people, then the government is obliged to help facilitate the construction site. Jadi kalau nggak memenuhi syarat dukungan 60 orang dari wilayah itu, tapi penggunanya masih 90 orang untuk tempat ibadah itu, maka pemerintah daerah wajib mencarikan alternatif wilayah untuk pembangunannya, gitu. Kemudian, if the number of users and supporters cannot be met, they may apply for a temporary place of worship permit to the government. Jadi kalau syarat 90 orang dan 60 orang tadi tidak terpenuhi, maka kelompok agama itu boleh meminta kepada pemerintah daerah untuk mendapatkan tempat sementara, tempat ibadah sementara. I think this is very much a reform from the previous regulations. And I did a research on this, on the process of making these regulations. There is, I think, a kind of 11 meetings of the leaders of religious councils in Indonesia, and I got the minutes of the meeting, and it is a very strong debate when they make this regulation. And then let me move on to penodaan agama, the blasphemy. The policy so far is based on the Presidential Decree No. 1, 1965, which, among other things, states everyone is prohibited from intentionally telling in public, recommending or seeking public support to interpret a religion adhered to in Indonesia, or to carry out religious activities that resemble the religious activities of that religion, which interpretation and activities deviate from the main points of the religious teachings. Ini saya bacakan saja bahasa Indonesianya. Setiap orang dilarang dengan sengaja di muka umum menceritakan, menganjurkan atau mengusahakan dukungan umum untuk melakukan penafsiran tentang sesuatu agama yang dianut di Indonesia, atau melakukan kegiatan-kegiatan keagamaan yang menyerupai kegiatan-kegiatan keagamaan dari agama itu, penafsiran dan kegiatan mana menyimpang dari pokok-pokok ajaran agama. So this is the reference of the blasphemy law, the early reference of the blasphemy law in Indonesia. I think it is also important to know the history behind these regulations. So at that time there was a discussion, tensions between NU as a political party and the communists, the Indonesian Communist Party. So the communists mobilized people in order to oppose the religious groups. So at that time, and then the Minister of Religious Affairs, Saifuddin Zuhri, demanded President Sukarno to issue this decree. So it was very historical thing. But then, in 2010, there was a request for a judicial review to the Constitutional Court on this decree, but it was not granted. The issue of blasphemy is also mentioned in Article 156A of the Criminal Code, which says a punishment for a maximum of 5 years in prison is anyone who intentionally, publicly expresses feeling or commits an act which is essentially hostile, abuse, or discredits a religion adhered to in Indonesia. Ini dalam Undang-Undang Pidana dikatakan pasal 156A, dipidana dengan pidana penjara selama-lamanya 5 tahun barang siapa dengan sengaja di muka umum mengeluarkan perasaan atau melakukan perbuatan yang pada pokoknya bersifat permusuhan, penyalahgunaan atau penodaan terhadap suatu agama yang dianut di Indonesia. So we of course still remember the case of regional election in Jakarta in 2017, Ahok case, which is very intriguing in Indonesia. Another important issue is the problem of loudspeakers. So if loudspeakers in the market, like what happened in Japan, and it's a very busy surrounding, probably it's not the problem, but it is loudspeakers of the mosque, sometimes it can be a problem. So the Minister of Religious Affairs issued a circular in February 2020. It's very new. The circular is actually a minor revision of the instruction issued by the Director General of Islamic Community Guidance issued in 1978. So I wrote an article about this after 44 years of the instruction. The solution to the problem is to differentiate between the in and the out loudspeakers, as well as limiting the maximum time. Okay. For using the external speakers. There is a middle path between banning the use of external loudspeakers altogether and liberating them completely. And the sound is channeled through external loudspeaker is basically just the call to prayer or adhan. However, it is also allowed to use the external loudspeakers 10 minutes before Fajr and Friday prayers. And I think many of you know how the controversy was this year. The last issue, very controversial one also. The problem related to religious freedom is the wearing of headscarf for female students in public school. Pemakaian jilbab untuk perempuan di sekolah negeri. The issue was reported in quite detail by Tempo magazine last September 2022. And it is stated that the government actually in 1983 banned the wearing of hijab, the wearing of jilbab or headscarves. But then in 1991, the Minister of Education, Fuad Hassan, issued a new regulation stating there that it is optional for students to wear hijab or not. But then, after the Reformation era, with democratization, regional autonomy, and so on, and the local government issued regional laws or bylaws, and then there are some regulation which oblige female students to wear jilbab. So then we have some cases. For instance, there have been cases forcing non-Muslim students actually to wear headscarf in Riau 2018 and Padang 2021. In July 2022, there was also a case of forcing a Muslim student to wear headscarf in Yogyakarta, while in Gunung Sitoli, North Sumatra, a teacher forbade students to wear headscarf. According to Tempo's report, the female students who were forced to go through were traumatized, partly because of pressure from teachers and his or her seniors. So it is quite difficult to find a middle way between preventing school completely from uniform with religious attributes and specificities like in a secular state, or obliging Muslim female students to wear the headscarf. The middle way is still debatable One, to oblige only female Muslim students, excluding the non-Muslim ones, or to make it a free option for Muslim and non-Muslims alike. So let me conclude my presentation with few remarks, because my time is almost finished. The first one is that I think the problem with religious freedom is sometimes also related to a psychological problem. In 1980, Thames wrote a very interesting article entitled Indonesian Muslim Majority with Minority Mentality. So, if you have a liberal views of religious freedom, it means that you have an open competition. With an open competition, we assume that we have an equal competence to compete. But if you are majority or minority, whatever, and you feel yourself weak, economically, politically, then it is a problem. The second one, I think with the electoral democracy that we enjoyed during the Reformation era, we cannot avoid that the majority vote is very important. So then the politicians could be preferring the majority against the minority. So these two, I think, other issues should be discussed when we talk about religious freedom in our country. And it is something to do with the middle path, which is not easy. I think this is what I can say. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. So the two speakers have already presented their papers, and now we'll come to the question and answer session. But before that, allow me to give a very brief summary translation. Ya. Jadi saya berikan sedikit summary terjemahan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Profesor Yo Nonaka mempresentasikan tentang perkembangan yang luar biasa dari masyarakat Muslim Indonesia yang ada di Jepang dengan kehadiran masjid, struktur bangunan, tradisi yang ada di sana, termasuk afiliasi dari kehidupan keberagamaan dengan salah satu organisasi sosial keagamaan yang cukup terkemuka di Indonesia seperti Nahdlatul Ulama. Tetapi dalam presentasinya juga sebenarnya Profesor Yu masih menyisakan sebuah fenomena ya, bahwa ketika masyarakat Muslim tinggal di negara yang lain sebagai diaspora, itu ada persoalan cultural barriers ya, ada challenge, ada tantangan dari aspek budaya, bahasa, dan juga aspek integrasi dengan host community. Kemudian Profesor Mujib mempresentasikan sebuah jalan tengah yang kira-kira cukup terlihat aman, tapi sebenarnya tidak mudah katanya ya, dan beberapa isu-isu fundamental yang dipresentasikan tadi terkait dengan relasi mayoritas dan minoritas dalam konteks masyarakat Muslim di Indonesia, misalnya terkait dengan perkawinan antar agama, terkait dengan kelas-kelas mata pelajaran agama di sekolah-sekolah, terkait dengan izin tempat beribadah, terkait dengan penistaan agama, dan juga terkait dengan pemakaian outfit Muslim di sekolah-sekolah. Nah, itu isu yang cukup penting dan signifikan, dan saya yakin para partisipan, peserta mungkin punya pertanyaan. You might have question, comments, or you would like to say something based on your research. So I would like to invite maybe for the first opportunity for 3 participants or 2, 3, 3 participants to give comments or maybe also question to our remarkable speakers today. I would like to invite maybe one from this side and this side, and also would like to see, of course, women participant to also give a question. Dipersilahkan Bapak Ibu kalau ada pertanyaan dari sini satu, mungkin dari sebelah sini, dan juga ada peserta yang memastikan ya, ada perempuan yang juga ikut bertanya. Silahkan. Mungkin panitia bisa mengidentifikasi. Ada satu orang di belakang. Di sini ada sayap kiri. Ada 2 orang. Di belakang saya mau satu lagi perempuan kalau ada. Ada? Atau nanti saya yang bertanya ya. Karena riset saya juga tentang diaspora Muslim Indonesia, tetapi di Korea Selatan. Ada? Oh iya, silahkan Ibu ya. Nah jadi 2 di sana silahkan, kemudian ada 1 Ibu. Mohon panitia memberikan mikrofon.
Menggunakan bahasa Indonesia bisa? Cek. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mohon maaf, saya menggunakan bahasa lokal, bahasa Indonesia. Nama saya Muhammad Abdi Munib Alfawas, saya dari STI Denpasar. Ingin sedikit bertanya dan meminta curahan ilmunya kepada profesor dan dokter. Yang kami tangkap daripada presentasi Profesor ketika tentang peradaban Nahdlatul Ulama yang berada di Jepang, kami ingin sedikit bertanya. Jadi yang kami tahu di Nahdlatul Ulama atau yang memiliki dasar Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaah, kami memiliki 4 madhab yang kami anut, artinya yang kami ikuti, yaitu madhab Imam Syafi'i, Imam Ahmad bin Hambal, dan Imam Malik dan Imam Hanafi. Nah, lalu kami ingin bertanya bagaimana warga Nahdlatul Ulama ketika berada di Jepang, apakah mereka harus menggunakan intiqalul madhab atau mereka harus menggunakan madhab seperti apa ketika beradaptasi ketika di sana? Karena kami yang ketahui ketika orang Indonesia, yang mana orang Indonesia banyak menggunakan Imam Syafi'i di Indonesia, ketika di Arab banyak menggunakan madhab Imam Maliki. Lah nanti ketika di Jepang itu kebanyakan mayoritas menggunakan madhab imam siapa, seperti itu. Meminta pencerahannya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, nama saya Tol Adi dari delegasi Sekolah Tinggi Agama Islam Denpasar, Bali. Di sini tadi narasumber menjelaskan tentang mahasiswa atau pasca sarjana yang berlatar belakang Nahdlatul Ulama meningkatkan kegiatan dengan mengikut sertakan training praktik kerja dan pembangunan masjid di berbagai lokasi. Pertanyaan saya, what are the concrete steps of Indonesian students in Japan in spreading dakwah, and then what can we learn from Indonesian students in Japan? Yang mana pertanyaan saya, bagaimana langkah-langkah konkret mahasiswa Indonesia di Jepang dalam penyebaran dakwah, dan apa yang bisa kami sebagai mahasiswa Indonesia contoh dari mahasiswa-mahasiswa Jepang yang mereka lakukan di negara Jepang tersebut. Sekian dari saya. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Dinda Aisyah, presenter dan moderator yang saya hormati, seluruh peserta yang juga saya hormati. Pertanyaan saya untuk Prof. Mujib. Di Manado berdiri sinagong dari Yahudi. Holocaust itu menjadi perdebatan di majelis ulama. Kami meriset di Tondano tentang Holocaust. Jakarta ribut, tapi kami tidak ribut di Manado. Karena bagi kami itu adalah kebebasan dan hak asasi yang pada agama sesuai dengan pasal 29 ayat 2. Tetapi yang hasil riset kami juga di Manado yang kami rasakan adalah mayoritas dan minoritas. Heboh secara nasional penggusuran masjid di Kabupaten Minahasa Utara. Dan kami sebagai periset sekaligus salah satu unsur Ketua Majelis Ulama Sulawesi Utara, sekaligus juga aktivis ikut menyelesaikan itu. Hikmahnya adalah yang tadinya tidak dikeluarkan IMB menjadi dikeluarkannya IMB. Itu pergumulan minoritas Muslim di daerah mayoritas. Itu yang kedua. Jadi riset kami juga yang ketiga tentang pendirian rumah ibadah di Bali, Lombok, dan Manado. Bali dikenal dengan 1000 pura, di Lombok dikenal dengan 1000 masjid, di Manado dikenal dengan 1000 gereja. Nah, pendirian rumah ibadah ini menjadi problem bagi daerah-daerah minoritas, Muslim minority. Terakhir, regulasi tentang perkawinan beda agama. Kami di Manado paling banyak, hasil temuan kami menemukan 60 pelaku kawin beda agama yang 50-50. 30 orang ditemukan 30 orang ditemukan. Terima kasih Rektor Palembang periode kemarin. Menemukan 30% menikah dulu secara Muslim, kemudian dia kembali lagi ke agamanya. So 30% juga menikah secara Kristen, setelah itu kembali juga ke agamanya. Jadi 50-50 yang kami temukan di yang terbanyak di daerah Tomohon ada 20 orang, 10 orang di Manado, dan sisanya di Minahasa Utara. Itu hasil riset kami. Nah, menjadi pertanyaan kami sampai sekarang regulasi tentang perkawinan beda agama di Indonesia yang masih sangat sulit, padahal banyak yang melakukan, khususnya di Sulawesi Utara. Demikian, terima kasih. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Rukmina Gonibala dari IAIN Manado.
Thank you very much. There is 3 questions. The first question is about the implementation of the 4 mazhab, the 4 schools, well known, for instance, in Muslim community in Indonesia, whether the diasporic Muslim community in Japan, Indonesian Muslim diaspora in Japan, also apply those 4 mazhabs. And the second question is about the role of the students in Da'wah movement in Japan and what the students over here in Indonesia could learn from those experience in Japan. And the third question is about the permission for religious worship place, as Professor Mujib presented today, the conflict, the issues, also the issues related to interreligious marriage. What about the regulation that government provided? Because the facts, the cases are over there in the field. So I would give the first opportunity for Professor Yu to answer, and we will end this session at 10 o'clock because another session will start. So this is the first and the last question and answer session. Sorry. Ya, silakan Profesor Yu.
Terima kasih banyak atas pertanyaannya. Saya menjawab satu persatu. Jadi untuk pertanyaan pertama mengenai mazhab yang diterapkan di Jepang. Pertama saya jadi kalau Jepang itu negara sekuler, jadi pemerintah Jepang tidak bisa campur tangan atau mengatur agama-agama yang tertentu. Jadi kalau di Jepang tidak ada institut yang entiti yang bersatu untuk mengatur agama Islamnya. Terus masing-masing masjid sekarang tadi saya sebutkan sekarang sudah ada lebih dari 100 masjid di Jepang, tetapi masing-masing masjid itu terikat dengan negara-negara yang tertentu, termasuk Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, dan Iran. So masing-masing di masing-masing masjid orang-orang Muslim yang mengikuti mazhab-mazhab yang tertentu yang ada kaitan dengan negara mancanegaranya. Jadi misalnya kalau masjid Kabukicho dan Akihabara yang dibuat di orang NU dari Indonesia, mereka mengikuti mazhab Syafi'i yang diterapkan di Indonesia. Jadi ini kondisinya sangat berbeda dengan yang ada di Timur Tengah karena mereka juga mayoritas Muslim. Terus mereka juga ada mazhab yang tertentu. Jadi mereka mungkin kebanyakan mengikuti Maliki atau Hanafi. Tetapi kalau di Jepang belum ada mazhab yang tertentu yang dijalankan semua Muslim yang tinggal di sana. Ini jawabannya. Terus yang kedua mengenai dakwah. Baik, kalau di sana saya lihat sangat berharga. Jadi sebagian Muslim, khususnya kalangan anak muda dari Indonesia, memutuskan untuk berdakwah kepada masyarakat Jepang yang khususnya yang tertarik pada Islam, dan juga ada juga muaraf yang baru masuk Islam. Jadi mereka berusaha untuk berkoneksi dengan mereka yang baru masuk Islam dan juga non-Muslim yang tertarik pada Islamnya. Saya berharap tidak hanya Muslim dari Indonesia tidak hanya membentuk sebuah wadah untuk mereka sendiri, tetapi berdakwah lebih lanjut dan lebih banyak kepada masyarakat Jepang supaya harmonis antara masyarakat Jepang dan Muslim atau masyarakat Jepang dengan masyarakat Indonesia bisa lebih erat, dan juga mungkin prejudice atau misconception terhadap Islam di Jepang juga akan hilang. Ini jadi harapan saya, dan juga mungkin dari situ mahasiswa-mahasiswa Indonesia di sini juga bisa belajar apa yang diterapkan oleh masyarakat Indonesian Muslim di Jepang. Ini jawabannya. Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih Bu Prof. Rukmina, Rektor IAIN Manado yang lama. Saya tadi menduga akan banyak yang bertanya karena masalahnya sensitif. Ternyata tidak banyak. Cuma satu orang pertanyaannya 3. Pertama soal sinagog dan holocaust. Saya kira kalau kita merujuk kepada penetapan Presiden nomor 1 tahun 1965 yang tadi saya kutip, tidak ada alasan untuk melarang mereka ya, karena di situ ditegaskan bahkan secara eksplisit disebutkan Yahudi itu boleh eksis di Indonesia. Jadi saya kira jelas kalau posisi itu. Kalau ada yang ribut biasa saja, di Indonesia biasa ribut. Kemudian yang kedua, ini terkait dengan sindrom minoritas dan mayoritas ya, pembangunan masjid dan sebagainya. Saya kira ini penting. Saya di dalam paper saya juga menegaskan ini karena kita sering orang Islam itu terkena sindrom mayoritas seolah-olah kita mayoritas gitu ya. Padahal itu hanya pada rata-rata di atas kertas. Dalam realitasnya kan sangat complicated. Misalnya di Bali yang mayoritas adalah Hindu, di Manado mungkin yang mayoritas adalah Kristen, di Papua yang mayoritas adalah Kristen. Di beberapa daerah Kristen itu adalah significant minority, minoritas yang signifikan gitu ya, jumlahnya besar, large minority. Nah, karena itu ya Indonesia sekali lagi negara yang sangat complicated sekali. Dan kalau orang berpikir hanya di atas kertas, maka kemudian akan ada semacam sindrom mayoritas. Nah, karena itu tadi saya mengutip di akhir presentasi saya, Wertheim itu sosiolog dari Belanda yang sudah tua, tahun 80 dia pernah menulis artikel judulnya begini, Indonesian Muslims Majority with Minority Mentality. Muslim Indonesia itu mayoritas dengan mental minoritas. Sehingga disertasi saya itu judulnya Feeling Threatened, merasa terancam. Ya, kenapa merasa terancam? Itu karena dulu memang mereka di masa Orde Baru tahun 70-an, 80-an itu mengalami marginalisasi. Negara melakukan marginalisasi terhadap gerakan-gerakan Islam, terutama Islam politik. Ya, nah lalu di sini ada perasaan terpinggirkan yang sangat kuat sehingga merasa lemah. Dan itu kemudian menimbulkan reaksi yang sangat keras terhadap negara, termasuk terhadap kebijakan yang dianggap menguntungkan minoritas. Padahal pola berpikir seperti itu membahayakan saudara-saudara yang minoritas gitu di tempat-tempat lain. Nah, ini satu poin. Nah, kemudian yang kedua, pada masa reformasi ada masalah lain, yaitu electoral democracy. Kita melaksanakan demokrasi berdasarkan one man one vote, one person one vote, satu orang satu suara, maka pertimbangan untuk mayoritas itu menjadi penting. Karena siapa yang dapat suara banyak, dia yang akan menang. Nah, sehingga kebijakan-kebijakan yang diambil oleh sebagian politisi itu cenderung untuk berbau mayoritas, entah itu mayoritas Muslim, mayoritas Kristen dan seterusnya. Jadi ini saya kira juga persoalan yang harus menjadi pertimbangan kita. Nah, karena itu saya kembali kepada argumen dari Jeremy Menchik ya, luar biasa menurut saya. Dia mengatakan itu bahwa Indonesia bisa menjadi model lain daripada demokrasi yang selama ini mengasumsikan menjadi negara yang sekuler dan liberal, tapi Indonesia tidak sekuler, tidak juga negara Islam, tapi negara yang multi religious. Pada saat yang sama, Indonesia tidak memegang liberalisme dalam toleransi dan kebebasan beragama, karena ada upaya melindungi atau integritas dari kelompok. Nah, persoalannya saya katakan dari awal, mencari jalan tengah seperti itu tidak mudah. Nah, bagaimana hak-hak minoritas bisa terlindungi, pada saat yang sama kepentingan integritas kelompok juga bisa terjaga. Nah, ketika diputuskan, ini saya melanjutkan kepada pertanyaan yang terakhir dari Ibu Rukmini, ketika diputuskan misalnya bahwa pembangunan tempat ibadah itu ada syarat persetujuan orang-orang sekitar yang jumlahnya itu adalah 60. Ya kan? Kemudian pengguna tempat ibadah itu minimal 90. Itu sebenarnya kan pertimbangan komunitas. Angka-angka itu ya saya enggak, itu dihitung-hitung aja gitu angka-angka itu ya. Tetapi kemudian tetap ada jalan keluar. Misalnya kalau itu tidak terpenuhi, ya, tidak ada dukungan dari orang-orang di sekitar itu, pemerintah daerah berkewajiban mencarikan lokasi baru sebagai alternatif. Saya kira ini sudah cukup adil, ya. Nah, kalau tidak terpenuhi juga dua syarat itu, maka bisa mengusulkan tempat sementara, ya kan? Nah, ini saya kira jalan keluar yang dicoba dicarikan sebagai jalan tengah supaya tidak terjadi konflik. Secara teoritik itu oke. Tapi dalam pelaksanaannya di lapangan, saya yakin itu masih banyak masalah. Ya, sekali lagi jalan tengah yang tidak mudah. It is possible, it is difficult, but it is not impossible. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Oh, satu lagi, saya lupa. Masalah intermarriage, ya, sedikit saja. Jadi perkawinan antar agama itu memang tidak ada di dalam undang-undang perkawinan. Karena perdebatan tentang itu sangat keras sekali waktu pembentukan undang-undang tahun 1974, ya. Tahun 1973 akhir 74 itu. Sampai demo, sampai macam-macam. Lalu kemudian diputuskan di situ bahwa perkawinan itu sah apabila dilaksanakan berdasarkan agama dan kepercayaannya. Kan begitu. Nah masalahnya adalah kalau agamanya melarang nikah antar agama berarti nggak bisa. Dalam Kristen pun yang saya tahu ya, itu ada berbagai pendapat. Ada yang melarang, ada yang membolehkan tetapi hanya memberkati saja, tidak meneguhkan saja, tidak memberkati. Ada yang membebaskan. Nah, di dalam agama lain juga ada seperti itu. Nah, jadi problemnya seperti itu. Lalu ada jalan keluar yang lain, yaitu bahwa orang yang menikah di luar negeri, kalau sah pernikahannya menurut hukum di luar negeri itu, maka sah perkawinan di Indonesia. Tapi ini kan artis saja mungkin yang bisa karena banyak duitnya. Kalau kita nikah ke luar negeri gimana caranya? Lalu solusinya yang tadi Ibu bilang, orang menikah dengan satu agama tapi kemudian bisa, atau 2 kali ada juga yang seperti itu. Nah karena itu saya kira, saya bukan ahli hukum perkawinan, mungkin kita perlu memikirkan ya satu jalan keluar bahwa perkawinan lintas agama itu tidak berdasarkan agama tetapi berdasarkan hak sipil. Nah bisa nggak seperti itu? Harusnya mungkin bisa di negara Pancasila ya. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much. Let's give a warm applause to our remarkable speakers. Jadi panel ini membicarakan tentang governance ya, tata kelola, dan dari sesi tanya jawab khususnya ya, saya ingin menyampaikan bahwa kita melihat ya kapan pemerintah harus berperan, kapan pemerintah tidak perlu berperan. Seperti kasus 4 mazhab yang ada di Jepang, pemerintah tidak mengintervensi sama sekali. Tapi Prof. Mujib punya poin, dalam hal-hal ini mungkin perlu keberadaan kebijakan tata kelola oleh pemerintah gitu ya, untuk memperkuat implementasinya. Baik Bapak Ibu, inilah akhir dari sesi kita pada hari ini, karena akan ada Jeremy Mencik masuk ke dalam Zoom untuk sesi berikutnya yang tidak akan kalah menarik. Terima kasih atas segala atensi dan perhatiannya. Sebelum para pemakalah turun, ada sedikit souvenir ya, gift of appreciation from the community from the committee to the speakers. Thank you very much. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Oke, saya sambil cek ada bule nggak di sini. Kalau nggak ada bule, saya bahasa Indonesia aja. Oke, kita langsung masuk ke sesi selanjutnya. Ada Jeremy Mencik. Tadi bukunya yang diceritakan Prof. Mujib sama Prof. Ali Munhanif sama mana? Prof. Masdar mana? Oh, Prof. sama. Oke, yang penting ada. Kalau dijagain aman Bu. Sama Prof. Masdar. Lalu kemudian di luar ada break, tapi biar tidak ribut dan mengganggu forum, silahkan keluar satu persatu, ambil bawa masuk ke dalam. Jadi kita tidak pakai istirahat 15 menit. Oke, monggo. Nanti selesai foto selanjutnya forum kita serahkan ke chair Prof. Aisyah. Monggo Prof.
Saya juga mau baca yang tentang filter itu. Ya. Tadi dia tuh ya, Malay word ya. Atau nanti saya minta, saya kirim ke ya. Ya, saya kirim email nanti. Ya. Oh iya. Nah.
Baik, Bapak Ibu sekalian, di luar kita sudah menyiapkan coffee break. Nanti setelah itu kita akan langsung masuk ke session kedua ya. Oke. Bapak Ibu silakan mengambil kopinya. Setelah itu langsung bawa masuk ke dalam ruangan ini. Karena kita akan segera masuk kepada session kedua. Sekali lagi kepada adik-adik mahasiswa termasuk juga seluruh partisipan agar mengambil kopinya kemudian dibawa masuk ke dalam ruangan ini karena session kedua akan segera kita mulai. Ini sudah pukul 10, nanti insya Allah sampai pukul 12 kita akan mengakhiri kegiatan kita. Terima kasih.
Halo Jeremy.
Halo Pak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, clearly. We would like to test. Do you have a PPT or slides for your presentation?
Check.
Hold on. I do not have slides, but I have comments.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
good evening.
Yeah, we would like to test if whether
Hello,
you have.
can you hear us?
Selamat malam Bu, selamat malam.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hello. Prof.
Hello,
Jeremy,
you'd like to
Jeremy,
test. What should I do?
can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. You can hear me okay. Testing.
Okay, we can hear you
Malam.
clearly. How about you?
How's the kopi? Kopi panas? Everyone well?
Okay, Jeremy, can you wait for a while because the participant is just take
Iya.
their copy
Iya.
or tea.
Silakan ya. Oke.
Bapak Ibu, mohon Bapak Ibu untuk kembali ke tempat karena narasumber kita kasihan dia sudah jam 10 malam di London. Boston.